Thank you very much, John Roberts. Race number 4 in the chase for the Sprint Cup in this 2009 season, and it happens at the Auto Club Speedway in Fontana, California, not far from downtown Los Angeles. And good morning, everybody. Steve Burns, Larry McReynolds, and Jeff Hammond. Do not adjust your picture. We are pink in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And, Jeff, I guess we could say real men wear pink.
Absolutely. You got to be comfortable with yourself, and I think we're doing a great job with it, guys.
Well, we're all in support of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Larry, you were saying this morning that even though this is a 2-mile super speedway, there are enough similarities from the Kansas Speedway that might be a predictor of success this weekend.
And I didn't come up with that totally on my own. I talked to a lot of the race teams in the garage area this morning, and they somewhat confirmed that. Yeah, it's a half-mile longer in length than Kansas Speedway, but the banking is essentially the same. And for the guys that ran well, here's some more good news. This is the same exact Goodyear tire combination left and right that we ran in Kansas. But that could be bad news for guys that struggled last week. Did they figure out what went wrong last week, like Ryan Newman and Brian Vickers, 2 of the chase guys? But when you look at Kansas, speaking of chase guys, this is good news for a lot of our chase contenders. When you look at the top 11 finishers from last week, 10 of those guys, chase drivers, and a lot of them, I think, came here with a very similar setup that they ran last week at Kansas.
Well, Jeff, you see Tony Stewart early in practice here. He got the win last weekend. And, you know, we talk an awful lot about momentum. I don't think many people outside here of the Los Angeles area gave the Dodgers much of a chance against the Cardinals in the Major League Baseball playoffs, but here they are up 2-0. So momentum a big key in all sports.
It really is. And when you go down and you take a look at Tony Stewart and what happened to this team last week, even though he wound up leading the regular season points and everybody thought he was going to dominate, I won't say they want to struggle early on, but he found himself over 100 points behind our point leader, Mark Martin. Well, after last week and being able to win that race, he's able to close that gap, and all of a sudden he's within 67 points of the lead. But the most amazing thing about it, guys, is the fact that our top 4 point leaders right there have been to victory lane with one exception, Juan Pablo Montoya. But you talk about momentum, you talk about consistency. He has 3 top 5 finishes. And talking to Darian Grubb, crew chief on that 14 car, they came into this chase knowing they had to win. And last week, I think it really made a big statement that Tony Stewart, our regular season point leader, he's back. And this thing's a long way from being over as far as he's concerned.
Larry, top 8 drivers separated by just 114 points.
Yeah, and when you look back at Kansas, at one point in that race, it looked like we were going to leave there with only about 4 drivers within 114 points. And going back to the graphic, if you notice, we had the bottom 4 drivers, Newman, Edwards, Kane, and Vickers, highlighted in yellow, because those guys now with 7 to go are more than 1 race behind. No matter what, Ryan Newman, who is sitting back there in 9th, he could not pass Mark Martin this week.
This is a 90-minute practice. These teams will qualify later this afternoon. We'll have that for you here on Speed.
And Larry, you know, you bring up the fact of the similarities of these 2 racetracks. We continue to look at Tony Stewart. It seems like he's out there going to make a pretty long run. This is about his 3rd lap. He's 9th quickest right at the moment. But for Darian Grubb and this 14-car team, you know, they got to be kind of like saying, all right, we're coming to a racetrack where Tony's never won, but coming off a big win at Kansas with a track, I mean, that's very similar, and tires that we've got information on. We understand very, very well. Darian also told me the first time that they came here to California, which was really the 2nd race of the year, was only the 2nd time he's had an opportunity to work with him at this racetrack. So, or first time here at a 1.5-mile racetrack or 2-mile track. So they had a lot to learn. He feels very confident that they have got this thing figured out, and they're going to be a force to reckon with.
There's Montoya, the 42 car, already the fastest in this practice, only a couple of minutes into it. Of course, this is a Chevrolet, and I know something that probably didn't get documented hard enough last week after the race at Kansas. When Tony Stewart won that race, already now Chevrolet has sewed up their 33rd Manufacturers Championship with the 15 wins in 2009, Steve. That's their 7th consecutive Manufacturers Championship to Chevrolet.
Championship not the only thing to be won here in this 2009 season. Stay with us. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice from the Auto Club Speedway is brought to you by Copart.com, an online auto auction where You control the price you want to pay. Go to Copart.com today. And by Lumber Liquidators, hardwood floors for less. Glad you're back with us for this 90-minute practice here at the Auto Club Speedway in Fontana, California. Joining us in the garage, Randy Pemberton and Wendy Venturini, and we start with Miss Wendy.
Well, thank you, Steve. Good morning to our West Coast viewers, and good afternoon to the East Coast. And I'm supporting the Breast Cancer Awareness Month of October with my pink and green and brown necklace that was given to me by a race fan in Kansas last week, so thank you very much. But let's talk about the guy that's fastest already this practice session, Juan Pablo Montoya, and I think he just went on by me. Juan Pablo's climbed out of the car. He's run 4 laps on his first run. The car's back in the garage, back on scales. They're going to continue to make some more adjustments, one of them being a right front shock change. And he said it feels pretty good. It comes down on the right-hand side, which is why they're making that shock change. But it needs to turn a little bit better for Juan Pablo. But a great start here at California Speedway for JPM. Now let's head over to my dear friend, Randy Pemberton.
Watching over here.
And we're having trouble with Randy Pemberton's mic. We'll get back to Randy in just a moment. Guys, we saw Randy down near Greg Biffle's car. Talked to Greg last night. They had the Stater Brothers Race Fest here, and Greg said, you know what? Ordinarily, I'd be happy with a third-place finish at Kansas, but Jeff, to your point, Greg said, I needed to win that race for the points.
I think it's so important for those guys to kind of like make a statement. In particularly, I think the Roush Fenway cars, because they really have been kind of lackluster. You know, the last time they won a race was here at California Speedway with Matt Kenseth back in the spring. So they're all looking for that magic. And again, talking to several of the crew chiefs that work in that organization, they've been making a lot of changes, trying to find the secret. And they came out here with a totally different setup than what they ran here in the spring. Even though they were good in the spring, they feel like everybody else has moved that bar up higher, so they're going to have to do a lot of work. There's the man that kind of runs the ship there, cat in the hat himself, Jack Roush.
But they have to feel good about Kansas, because not only did the 16 car perform well, led the most laps and finished third, Matt Kenseth ran well until he had engine failures. Jamie McMurray qualified 4th and ran up in the top 5 or 10 a good part of that race. And Carl Edwards, the 99 car, finished 10th, and that was after working a big part of that race to overcome a pit road speeding penalty after being a lap down. But you know, one thing that I noticed is I don't know if we're seeing a lot of people make long runs, and here's the reason I think. This is a 500-mile race on Sunday. They have an hour-and-a-half practice today. They have another hour and 45 minutes tomorrow. You can't just sit here and log laps after laps after laps knowing it's got to go 500 miles. And think back last week. We saw a little more of motor attrition than we've seen. The 83 blew up. Now, I personally think they spun that engine backwards when he spun coming off 4. The 88 blew up. We talked about the 17. You've got to be careful and not just put a ton of miles and cycles on that engine today and tomorrow.
Marcos Ambrose, the 47 car. He is 19th overall.
Had a solid run at Kansas. Good top 15 finish for Marcos. Finished 14th.
Spoke to Marcos last night, and he said, you know, he goes, we got to a point in this season where we really thought we had an opportunity to get in the chase. And when it didn't happen, obviously they lost a little momentum. But, I mean, if you look at his body of work this year, they've got to be pleased with the progress they've made.
You know, the one thing about that, when you bring that up, Steve, is that when you don't make a desired goal, whether it's Marcos Ambrose, whether it's Matt Kenseth and his team, or even Kyle Busch, automatically you start looking, okay, what do we need to do in the final 10 races to get better, not only this year, but we need to think about 2010. Sitting there looking now at Kurt Busch in the 2 car. He's 5th quickest in this practice session with 1 win this year and 6 top 10s. But we're here, I'm talking about here at Speedway. He's been very successful here at Auto Club Speedway. But the key thing is you start changing your game, I plan, because you don't have testing in the off season. So if you're going to learn anything, if you're going to experiment with anything, you have to sometimes, you know, be willing to sacrifice a race along the way. That might not work, or it may be good enough to win a race. I think you're going to see a lot of those teams, like Marcos Ambrose, they're going to experiment a little bit in these remaining 10 races and see if they can get better for 2010.
But what's interesting is we know the cars are parked in the garage area by how they are in points. And when you walk down through there, The one car that stands out that's sitting up there in the top 20 that you go, wow, is Marcos Ambrose, the 47 car. He's sitting there higher in the points than Jeff Burton, Casey Mears, Kevin Harvick, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Those guys, in the short period of time they've been together as a Cup team, they've had a good solid season.
Very solid season, but as I said earlier, Steve, 2010 is going to be big for him.
A lot of chasers up in your top 10 early on here in California. It's a little hazy here in Fontana, California. We're about 55 miles east of Los Angeles, California. Glad you're with us for this 90-minute practice. Chase competitors Mark Martin and Juan Pablo Montoya. What do you think they're talking about?
I don't know what they're talking about, but I know what people are talking about them. Unique stories. A 50-year-old guy trying to win his first championship, and a guy that's won at Monaco, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, trying to be a part of this championship run as well.
Well, Larry, you talked about the track description here at the Auto Club Speedway, our Copart track description, 2 miles around. Now, Kansas, the banking at Kansas was 15 degrees, and here, as you said, just 1 degree difference.
But it's also a little bit longer, so you're still carrying a lot of speed down pretty much a flat racetrack. You're going to your car's got to work well around here. We take a look at the rookie Joey Logano, hanging that car out wide like he does, and then chopping across it and down to the bottom of the racetrack. You're going to see a lot of that today, Steve, is how far can you drive in before you turn the car off toward the center of the corner. If you can do that and make it work effectively, what it does here, it helps to get you aimed down that back straightaway, and that's how you really run faster around California. That's the big benefit of this big sweeping corner racetrack here.
Jeff, you know, we talk about some tracks being a momentum racetrack. Would you classify this as well, meaning you can't afford to slow your lap down at all? And I know that sounds basic or elementary, but would you put this track in that momentum category?
Absolutely. When you're coming to qualify here later on this afternoon, if you're not able to carry speed from the entrance of turn 3, I mean, you've got to have a head of steam coming into there. You're not going to put down a quick lap, and that's going to put you deep in the field, because the guys who can will definitely be quicker than you are.
Steve, because of the longer straightaways, the one change that they do have here, and it's per the NASCAR gear rule, is you have about a 10 to 12 point higher rear end gear here, and that's because the straightaways are longer, so they take gear out of it for this racetrack here.
Wendy, what's your report on Joey Logano and that 20 team?
Well, you gotta love 19-year-old Joey Logano, who says his race car is stupid tight right now, and they need to be a little bit more freer. So his crew chief, Greg Zippodelli, is gonna make him run a few more laps. He said, Joey, run your line, move around, try and get more comfortable. Joey said it's turning a lot better, but he's continuing to move the line every lap and see which one feels most comfortable to young Joey Logano. Good advice from his crew chief, Greg Zippodelli.
I'm gonna tell you what, guys, this young driver is tenacious as far as being successful. I was on the airplane with him yesterday, and it was about a 5-hour flight from the East Coast. He sat in his seat a good 2/3 of that flight with a laptop, watching reruns of qualifying from February, watching reruns of the race from February, studying what he was doing, studying what other cars were doing. And we talked about the struggles at Kansas. If you go back to last week, somewhat of a struggle there. Ended up finishing 28th, and he finished 26th here in the spring. So that's one reason they're trying to make as many laps as they can with him.
Larry, you noticed all this in between which nap?
I did not take a nap.
I know how you do on the airplane.
Both of you rascals fall asleep before the plane even takes off.
I worked on my NASCAR performance notes on the way out here.
And what time does that air, Mr. McRae?
We only have one airing. It will be on Sunday, race morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and I appreciate John Roberts actually teasing it before we even came on the air.
Now, reiterate, Eastern time.
Eastern time.
Even though we're on the West Coast shooting
11 a.m. Eastern.
11 o'clock Eastern. Okay.
We're going to talk about radiator ductwork and airflow, aerodynamics on the front end of the car.
You know, you guys spent too many years back in the 80s going up and down the interstates in vans, and now you guys fall asleep in a hurry.
Yes, we do. Catch a nap anywhere at any place you can.
You don't understand. We're behind on our sleep.
You are. You're catching up.
Yeah.
Juan Pablo Montoya and Mark Martin, you saw them a few minutes ago. Guess what? They're fastest. The 18 car of Kyle Busch got word yesterday that, I don't know the specifics, but I've been told that he is pretty sick here this weekend, and he is just 27th quickest right now in his Toyota.
Well, I know that there's a lot of guys in the garage area, and I personally have had the flu this year,
Yes.
and it may not been that N1, B1,
H1N1.
whatever that stuff is. The normal flu that you get. I had the normal flu, and it took about 5 to 7 days to get over it. So if he's got that, I know how he feels.
And I had it before you the week before.
Oh, you're the one to give it to me.
I did.
How have I dodged it then?
You're just
I
too
don't know.
mean.
We spend a lot of time in close company.
Yes, we do.
Kyle Busch got his first Cup win here in 2005, September of that year.
Yeah, Steve, you know what? We've been together so long that when I think about it, I got an itch. You scratch it
That's
for
exactly right.
I don't even want to go there.
Too much information. Look at our menu today here on Speed. Barrett Jackson at 4 Eastern, Sprint Cup qualifying. 6:30 Eastern here on Speed. Then another Barrett Jackson. Trackside, Brian Vickers and Ryan Newman join us at 11. Nationwide practice. See that tape delayed at midnight.
Hey, do I have time in between these shows to run over to Las Vegas? Not that far. I could go bid on a car or two.
You know what? Your buddy Brendan Gaughan said he drove here from Las Vegas in 3 hours and 20 minutes. Oops.
I'm glad I wasn't riding with him.
I'm going to tell you what, it is one of the prettiest rides that you will ever have. It's beautiful.
Hey, is our buddy Mike
Joy is
over
over there, I promise you.
I can call Mike and get him to bid on stuff. I don't have to leave the booth.
Casey Kane right now in the 9 car, 35th quickest, but this is becoming the norm for this group. I even go back to Kansas last week. They were at the bottom of the chart almost the entire practice session, and then went out there and qualified in the top 10. So it's like they're spending a lot of time in this practice on Friday working on race setup.
Casey Kane heads to the garage. We do as well. And Wendy.
Well, Larry Mack, not too long ago, you were talking about guys saving miles on their engines for this long race on Sunday here at California Speedway. That's exactly what Tony Stewart and the 14 team are doing. I talked to Darian Grubb, and he was talking about 200 miles is really their limit, that they want to keep on that engine under 200 miles between today and tomorrow's practice sessions. Now, the engine tuner, who's Randy Hefner, they call him Dirt Track here. Everybody's got a nickname in the Cup garage, and it's Dirt Track, is the tall gentleman standing right next to Tony Stewart, also talking to Scotty Maxim with Hendrick Motorsports in the engine department. Their goal is to just take it easy, not to put too many laps on the engine in this first practice session. They have gone and run 5 laps so far. He's 10th on the practice chart. Randy?
Yeah, Wendy, same thing over here. What I'm noticing in the garage here, I'm over here near Greg Biffle's Ford, as well as the 39 of Ryan Newman, the 99 next to me. I noticed a whole different pace down here, guys, than I've seen over the past couple of weeks. And I'm not sure if I'm just imagining it or what, but these guys are really methodically taking their time. All I'm hearing about is the first couple of times out, guys were dragging the splitter a little bit, so they're trying to get the car up off the racetrack as far as the 99. And the 9 car goes, same thing, dragging the splitter, but just a few laps here, and they are in qualifying trim, most of these guys. Greg Biffle has been standing here. He's been out of the car for nearly 15 minutes already. As far as the 83 goes with Brian Vickers, they had a terrible run last week at Kansas, and they thought that their rear end housing wasn't quite what they needed it to be. So they went ahead and worked on that car prior to coming here. And as you guys know upstairs, a lot of these teams have 3 cars here, particularly the guys in the chase. They had to make all those transfers when we left Kansas. Everybody brought cars to Kansas. They transferred the cars, brought more cars here. So all these guys in the chase have 3 cars here. A lot of them sitting with the 3rd car at the hotel. So in case they need one and one gets wrecked, they can go peel one and bring it right over to the racetrack, guys.
Yeah, Randy, Brian Vickers, he said, thankfully, I couldn't wait to get out of Kansas. They finished 37th, and he's in a pretty deep hole right now.
Well, and you know, even Brian Vickers said this week, as we look at Mark Martin right now, he's 2nd quickest, just about a half a tenth slower than Montoya. But even Brian Vickers said this week, we hope we did not use all of our mojo up getting into the chase, because I felt like that Kansas last week and here this week, sat on the pole here in February, was going to be a good measuring stick for the 83 car, considered the 1.5 mile, 2 mile racetracks.
I'm kind of glad you brought that up, but I really think they have. I think that they've really put so much effort into making that chase that they've run out of gas. And it's no disrespect to the team or the organization, because they're still a young group. learning how to make this stuff work the way they're supposed to. But as of late, they just continue to really not perform like they did trying to get into the chase.
Well, I point you to ask him that because he's one of our guests along with Ryan Newman on trackside.
I'll be glad to, and I'm sure that he will give us a straight answer.
Just saw Sam Hornets Jr. He's getting around this place really well right now in his Dodge. 8th overall, 10 laps completed. There's Sam.
The most laps anybody has run so far. I see Casey Mears at 13 and his teammate Jeff Burton at 14 laps so far. Sam had a solid run at Kansas after qualifying 33rd. He finished 18th last Sunday at that 1.5-mile track.
Top 4, in the top 4 right now, we have 3 Chevrolets. Jimmy Johnson 4th overall. David Reagan in a Ford is 3rd.
And he is the winner, Jimmy Johnson, of the last 2 fall races here. And of course, as we all know, 44 wins ago in the spring of 2002, that's where the 48 car, Chad Knaus, Jimmy Johnson, a lot of the same guys that are still there today, that's where they got their very first win, right here at Auto Club Speedway.
Wendy.
And Mark Martin finds himself in the garage area. He's climbing out of the race car. He's only run 3 laps, second on the practice chart. Now, it seems like Mark Martin is one of those guys. I love the way he does these practice sessions. He can go out for 1 lap and give a whole book of feedback to his crew chief, Alan Gustafson. And that's what he said just this last time in the garage. He has a very good balance on the 5 car. He said it's a little bit free when he goes into turn 3, but he doesn't want to worry about. He says, I can live with that. Let's work on some other things. He is not far off, according to Mark Martin, in the 5 car. He feels good. He says that last time around was pretty close to a maximum lap, and you guys in the booth can further explain that.
Well, Wendy, a lot of times when you talk about what a driver's giving you and trying to make an effort at, that's what he says. I'm pretty much wide open. I need a little more help to get some speed out of the car to help me. But the interesting point, look at Mark Martin. He pulls up that chair, basically, and he sits there and he stares at the timing monitor. Folks, he's not watching, you know, Tom and Jerry or anything like that. There's not cartoons up there. He's watching that scoring monitor, trying to see how many guys, you know, what they're running, number of laps they've been out on. They've got a lot of information right there. And the driver, Mark Martin, is trying to see who's sandbagging and who's not. What do I need to do to find some speed to be able to get to where I want to be, which is being number 1. Well, they're pretty darn close right now. He's only got one Pablo Montoya between him and where he really wants to be.
Well, his teammate Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jeff, 16th overall right now in his Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet.
Woo. Can you believe it? He looked good last week, didn't he, Larry?
You, what an awesome race car those guys had. You know, qualified 2nd, drove up there, led the race for over 40 laps. And all you can say on that green flag pit stop when they had to come back to pit road for the left rear lug nut, it just knocked the wind out of their sail. They never recovered and then ended up with an engine failure late in the race. No question. Across the board, one of the best runs that the 88 car has had as far as qualifying, practice, and the race.
First laps he's led in the last 7 races.
He flexed his muscle big time early in that race.
He's got a birthday tomorrow, Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Which one is it? Is he 33?
35.
35.
Oh, no. He does like his daddy used to do. When you get to 35, you go backwards. He's really 34.
We're going to see Clint Boyer, the yellow car there coming into view. This is, oh, actually it's a purple car.
Yeah.
They used all the racetrack up there. Yeah, he's got the purple paint scheme this weekend.
And he is one of those guys, Jeff, you touched on. Yeah, they want to win races, but they definitely are looking ahead to 2010. He said there is no question about it.
No, they're trying to figure out what they missed this year. I mean, people say, well, darn, the season's so long. Surely you could figure it out. But Larry, you'll tell them right quick, it takes a while sometimes. When you get off base, you never get it totally figured out. I mean, you can work and work and work, and you change everything, and it's like when you don't know how you got off, you don't know how to get back on.
Well, I think a prime example would be Pat Trice and Kurt Busch in that 2 car. You go back to last year, it was obvious about halfway through the summer that they were way off base, and they were not going to make the chase. They kind of realigned everything and said, you know what, we're going to work on 2009. Yeah, we still want to win another race, but we want to work on 2009, and they came right out of the box at Daytona, right here at Auto Club Speedway after that, and they've been solid as a rock all year long.
Guys, remember Kurt Busch told us on trackside last year, we're a science project for the rest of 2009.
You're exactly right.
And that science project worked.
Yeah, it really has. And, you know, even though Pat's leaving that organization, they still continue to perform well in this chase, and he's definitely not out of it.
Well, folks, later tonight on Speed, we have roared into Fontana for race number 4 in the chase. Be with us as Brian Vickers and Ryan Newman stop by for trackside tonight at 11 Eastern. Back at the Auto Club Speedway, a good look at some of the spotters high atop. It's a 2-mile racetrack. And by the way, that is mandatory. NASCAR makes each team have a spotter.
And I don't think they'll be very busy this practice session. Like right now, we only have about 3 cars out on the racetrack, as we documented earlier. I think most of this practice is going to be just practice qualifying runs. You see Jeff Burton there in the 31 car right now, 26th quickest. He has run a total of 19 laps, which is about as many as anybody. The other thing I think that we should document, we actually have 45 cars here, so 2 cars will be going home of our go home group. Right now, the slowest of those cars, all 45 cars in practice, is right now Max Pappas, Mike Wallace, Michael McDowell, who actually missed the show last week in the 36 car, and Tony Raines are the 4 slowest cars.
We have 5 chasers among the top 6 fastest. The slowest chaser, Casey Kane, just 35th overall in his 9 car. Let's go down back to the garage and Wendy.
Kurt Busch has just pulled his race car into the garage area, sits in there, and they're going to make some changes. He said his car is not driver friendly right now. He said it's hard to get down the power down coming off the turn, and he doesn't like when it makes a lane change. The car doesn't like it. It's not being very nice to Kurt Busch this morning. So they are going to go back to their original rear springs and shocks that they started this practice session with. Of course, as the team makes those changes, Kurt Busch will just hang out in that race car to get back out there, and he hasn't run too many laps either, but this car has been wandering all around this racetrack, and that happens a lot at the California Speedway. That's the biggest issue that Kurt Busch has been fighting this afternoon. Randy?
Well, we're hearing a lot over on this side of the garage, particularly with Dale Earnhardt Jr., is overall grip. It seems like you go out on these tires after 2 or 3 or 4 laps, the grip just really goes away. So they're struggling to get the car down in the racetrack. You'll notice here on the 88 car, if we get cameraman to tilt down, they have their setup tires on this. See, they have it on the scales now. These tires have grooves in them. This is what they use to set the car up. It gives them a constant where they can go ahead and change things, so they know exactly what this car measures from height and all that by putting these tires on. They're scaling them up and trying to get him a little bit more over grip. And as you see Dale Earnhardt Jr. pondering what to tell crew chief Lance McGrew here in as they work on the 88 car. Guys.
Randy, Dale Earnhardt Jr. 16th overall right now. Kevin Harvick driving for Richard Childress Racing.
You know, we talked about the 33 team just trying to get things back on track for 2009. There's no question. Richard Childress Racing in general, all 4 of those teams trying to get back on track. Right now, Kevin Harvick, 41st out of the 45 cars that's been out there, and just everywhere they go, they just can't get their arms around what they need. You look at Kansas last week, qualified 38th and finished 24th. Just out of the realm of what this 29 car has done for most of the past seasons.
And Jeff, we talk about it every week, and if we don't enough, then shame on us. But when you talk about them finishing 24th or qualifying 39th, what have you, we're talking about a 10th. Or maybe a 10th and a half of a second. But that's all it takes in this division, in this series.
It really is, Steve. And again, you know, the closeness of the competition sometimes is not given fair enough credit. But that's what you have to do. You can't afford to get off that little bit. We talk about the Roush Fenway cars. They've been struggling as a whole all year long with the exception of 2 wins. Same thing with Richard Childress Racing. Last year, all 3 cars in the chase. This year, 0 cars in the chase, and they continue to kind of like the search. But I think this 29 car is doing what we talked about earlier. I think they're experimenting, and some of their experiments are still not coming, producing the type of results that they were looking for. Just going by there was Casey Mears' teammate in the 07 car, who, like Clint Boyer, he's 19th on the grid right now. So you got to think that they're doing something over at Richard Childress Racing to try to figure out what they need to do. And don't forget, this race here is basically a home race for Kevin Harvick.
Well, let's put this in perspective. The fastest lap right now is a 39.46 put down by Juan Pablo Montoya. Let's go back to Kevin Harvick. He is 41st, and he ran a 40.50. So, again, you're talking about less than a second.
And I talked to a lot of the crew chiefs week in and week out. Back in the day, you used to try to find a half a second or a second. Now you're hunting tenths and in some cases hundredths of a second.
Saw Greg Biffle for a second. Biffle right now 12th overall. Talking about Richard Childress Racing, there's Casey Mears in the 07.
And see, here's a good indicator that maybe they're doing some things different over there. The 07 of Casey Mears, he's 7th quickest in his practice. So when this practice, as it gets closer to the end right there, Larry, they're going to be sharing the information. They will know what's inside that 07 car. And if they need to, they'll carry it right over to the 29, the 31, or the 33. And they say, here it is, guys. Take all of it, take part of it, whatever you want to do as far as this setup's concerned on these cars, and see if it'll make your car better.
And what's amazing, we talked about Jeff Burton, one of the Childress cars. He's run a total of 20 laps. So is Casey Mears. And when you wreck a car as a driver in practice, guess what you do? You fix a car. That can be really good.
Unless you're
really
Darrell
bad.
Walter. Unless you're Darrell Walter.
Shouldn't he get out of the way?
Yeah.
We are about 41 minutes into a 90-minute practice here at the Auto Club Speedway. Glad you're with us. Race number 4 in the 10-race chase for the NASCAR Sprint Cup. Take a look at today's menu. Barrett Jackson follows us. Then we'll have live Sprint Cup qualifying, 6:30 Eastern, the time for that. That's a Barrett Jackson sandwich, if you will. And at 11, Ryan Newman and Brian Vickers join us on trackside nationwide practice on a tape-delayed basis here on Speed.
Something we've not talked about, we first started coming to this Speedway back in, I think it was 1997 or 1998, and we ran here for once a year in the spring up until about 2003 or 4. And then with the realignment of schedules, we started coming here twice a year. They moved the spring race to the race right after the Daytona 500, and then we've been coming here on Labor Day weekend. And I know for a fact I was here the last 2 race weekends, the entire weekend, well over 100 degrees when the race started. Trust me, I believe that was the Achilles heel of what was going on at this Speedway. You've got to tip your hat to NASCAR, ISC, Atlanta Motor Speedway, Auto Club Speedway for doing the date swap. And I think we're going to have a great weekend here. The weather is absolutely gorgeous. We know how well the swap worked out for Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Yep.
And I guess I just have the hopes that the fans that are maybe up on top of the fence, trust me, come here. It's in the chase, the weather's gorgeous, and I think we're going to have a great race on Sunday.
I think the high is supposed to be 78 degrees on Sunday. It's just beautiful weather here.
And Larry, you mentioned the chase. So let's go back to the first 3 races here in the chase. Every time we turn around, we basically set a new record for guys finishing in the top 10 that are involved in the chase. What, last week, 9 out of the top 10.
10 of 11.
10 of 11, they were in the chase, or they're in the chase. I mean, these guys are running hard, trying to win this thing, knowing they're having to score points. They need to get top 5 finishes. If they can't get a win, they've got to do that. So I think that, it's been very unbelievably competitive racing so far in the first 3 chase races. So you got to believe the same thing's going to happen here in California.
Well, Larry mentioned that Jimmy Johnson got his very first win here in 2002. He is one of 3 three-time winners, Jeff Gordon and Matt Kenseth, the other drivers who have been to victory lane 3 times. For more on Jimmy Johnson, let's go back to Wendy.
Well, just wanted to tell race fans about a very cool thing that Jimmy Johnson does when he comes to the California Speedway. Of course, this being his home state, the Jimmy Johnson Foundation hosts a big charity event when he comes out west. And this week, he had another one and raised over $500,000 through the Jimmy Johnson Foundation. Now, I know it includes a golf tournament, some charity auction items. I know some of our own speed guys went over there. I'm not much of a golfer, but I try to help on the charity end of the auction items. But Jimmy Johnson raising another $500,000 for his charity. Great job by the 48 by Jimmy Johnson and his wife, Chandra. Let's head over to her. Oh, I'm sorry, Randy.
Hey,
my
thanks,
dear
Wendy.
friend.
Hey, I kind of got a question for you guys up there. We're looking at the 16 car right now, up on scales. Greg Biffle sits in the car. Now, how do they differentiate weighing the car with the driver in it as compared to more often than not when the driver jumps out of the car, they scale the car? So the question I got for you guys is, what exactly are they looking for there when they do that with the driver in the car?
Randy, don't be deceived. If that driver is not in the car, if you look over in the seat, there are normally sandbags that represent that driver's weight in the car. Sometimes a driver, especially if you weigh the car early in the morning, they're a little hard to find, so you have the weight that's represented with sandbags, bean bags, whatever, sitting over in that seat. It's rare you ever weigh the car without the driver's weight in it.
Yeah,
Wow,
in the very
that's
beginning,
amazing.
Randy, we used to always weigh the car without the driver, and we learned through, testing, through racing, through having engineers. They show that, look, if you're going to run this car on the racetrack and that driver weighs 180 to 200 pounds, that's what you need to simulate, and that's what they're doing right now with Greg sitting in that car. They're able to get this thing fine-tuned the way it needs to be.
Now, Larry, I want to clarify. You said hard to find. You're talking about the drivers.
They're not out of bed yet. Cut to the chase.
As I've told a lot of people, and I've told Daryl, you don't even know God made 2 7 o'clocks. You don't even know the one in the morning exists. You only know about the one in the evening time.
Hey, you thought my comment a few minutes ago was going to get me a text message? Hang on, buddy. You'll get one here in a minute, too.
Phone is standing by.
It's vibrating as we speak.
He may be up at 7 o'clock, but if he hadn't had 2 cups of coffee, he's not awake.
Guys, looking at Tony Stewart here in this 14 car, he's run a total of 7 laps. He's 10th quickest. There's only 3 tracks on the Cup circuit of the 22 he's not won at. Las Vegas, Darlington, and here at Fontana. But now he did win a nationwide series race here back in February of last year.
Jeff, getting back to your point,
Text
message received.
He is awake.
Jeff, getting back to your point earlier of Darian Grubb and Tony Stewart, they were so early in their relationship as driver crew chief here in February. Tony even said this week, I would ask Darian, or Darian would make a suggestion on setup, and I'd go, whoa, are you sure? And that relationship has now evolved to the point where they're right in the thick of it.
No, it's all about trust. You take a look at the big win, like I say, last week. And I think another thing, when you look at that crowd, if you knew what you were looking for, the coolest thing is right now his dad, Nelson, is there every week being a part of this, upcoming, they hope, championship season. That's what he's hoping for. He's basically put his race on the back burner so he can hang out with Tony.
There you go. You see him down there every single weekend.
6 chasers in the top 10 here in practice. Sunday, NASCAR race day built by the Home Depot is here in California. Championship contenders Denny Hamlin and Casey Kasem will be live. Plus, Wendy Venturini gets the real deal from owner Chip Ganassi. Coverage beginning Sunday at 12:30 Eastern here on Speed.
Casey Kasem? That's a disc jockey, isn't it?
Did I say Casey Kasem?
Yes, you did.
I did?
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
Casey Kane.
You want us to rewind the tape?
Wow.
Why would we want to tell you a story like that?
Is Parker Kligerman entered in the nationwide race?
I'm working on that name until Homestead. I have all the way to Homestead to get it right.
Oh, me. Speaking of getting it right, about our boy Elliott Sadler here, we just got back off a little outdoor adventure.
Did you now?
Terry
Yes.
Labonte, Elliott Sadler, host of others.
Chris Williams. We went down to New Mexico and did a little elk hunting at Limestone Outfitters, and our buddy Elliott Sadler, first time out, he was able to tag a big one. He really did a good job, had a real exciting time. I laughed so much. He's got some hunting stories that, we can't talk about them on TV, but they're
big
fun.
What? He tagged
Elk.
Okay, big one.
Yep, big elk.
We're batting 1,000. All 3 of us. We've now officially received a text from DW in Franklin, Tennessee.
He's working, isn't he?
Well, I know Wendy's working. Wendy?
Well, that's a loose term in this garage area. Denny Hamlin climbs out of his race car in this garage. Now, the way California Speedway has their garage stalls set up, the 11 car has chosen to take in an outside area right next to their hauler instead of going 1 row over, and they start with Jeff Gordon on the other side of the garage. So the 11 has this nice sunny spot here in California. Denny Hamlin getting out of the race car after his first qualifying run in that qualifying trim right there. The crew had just switched it over to QT, talking to Mike Ford, his crew chief, about that lap. Now, before qualifying trim, it was a little bit bouncy over the bumps in race trim. He's been fighting a loose condition. They've run 13 laps, it looks like, for Denny Hamlin, and he is 13th on the chart. Steve?
Thank you, Wendy. Greg Biffle with the Scotch colors this weekend. Headed to the garage, and we'll show you why.
Whoa, Greg. That's up off turn 4, opposite from where Clint Boyer got into it. Boyer got a little bit loose off turn 2 a little bit earlier.
I don't think he heard anything, but he definitely scared everybody.
Wow, he got close.
Oh man, he just took the paint off the back edge of that rear bumper.
His sponsorship is painter's tape, and that was the width of paint he took off.
That's not the way you need to get your sponsor on TV, Greg.
He did it pretty clever.
You know, looking at the 16 car, Greg Biffle, we've had 18 previous races here, and 2 owners have been a part of winning 14 of those 18 races. Rick Hendrick Motorsports, they have 7 wins here, and with the win that Matt Kenseth had in February, Roush Fenway, they have 7 wins here. So 2 owners, 14 of the 18 wins.
Well, Jeff, you and Elliott Sadler went to New Mexico. I read at SpeedTV.com today that Ryan Newman and his wife Chrissy left Kansas and went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Went horseback riding, had a little mini vacation before California.
Good time of year to do it. Got 7 weeks to go.
Yep.
Tell you guys, riding horses is good for you. Good therapy.
Do you have to shoot animals, though?
Oh, no.
Speed's coverage of NASCAR Sprint Cup brackets from the Auto Club Speedway, brought to you by Camping World's Destination Recreation Sweepstakes. Log on to campingworld.com/racing to enter weekly giveaways. This week, win one of 5 $500 shopping sprees. Closing in on the 1 hour mark, and we showed you Greg Biffle just barely nicked the wall. Randy has an update.
Yeah, Greg Biffle got all the way to the garage area and before he even told the guys, you know, I just kind of nicked the fence coming off of the corner. So he's also saying that he just doesn't know how to tell these guys to fix this race car. Not completely happy with it. Talking about all 4 shocks. A 4-shock change here shortly. 2 of them in the front right now. They're swapping them back and forth, getting ready to change the shocks, but not happy with it. Concerned about what everybody else is running on similar tires, but absolutely says, I don't know what to tell you guys to make this thing any faster. He just says it feels slow.
Well, to me, watching that car, Larry, and we had a discussion yesterday when we were over at Fox corporate headquarters about how a guy looks like inside that race car. Watching that race car coming off, it's like it didn't want to turn, and all of a sudden the front kind of did get some grip and it kicked the back end out on a late exit. So it's almost like the car's too tight.
And we are working on some possible things for NASCAR on Fox in 2010 to tell that story a little better. Our 10th year of NASCAR on Fox, starting with what will be our 7th Daytona 500 in February.
Hard to believe, 10 years.
It really is.
NASCAR on Fox.
Feels like only 1, really.
Of course, the viewers might say that too.
Oh my God!
Those
yeah,
guys
10
are
years
still
and they're
around.
coming back. Clint Boyer back on the racetrack after doing a little repair work to his car. Finds himself 6th quickest. I believe they've kind of switched his car over to a qualifying run there.
You know, we talked about Roush Fenway and Hendrick each winning 7 races here. Clint Boyer's 3rd place finish here in September of 2006. That's Richard Childress Racing's best finish here at this 2-mile Auto Club Speedway.
Paul Menard, 18th overall. Yates Racing, 6 laps on this racetrack for Menard.
Larry, what are you hearing about Paul Menard? I mean,
That's a good point.
It seems like, that they're not really saying, are they going to stay there at Roush Fenway, I'm wondering?
Well, of course, this is part of Yates Racing, and we continue to get releases from Richard Petty Motorsports about the possible merger with Yates Racing. And I do know the initial driver lineup for that operation. Of course, we know it can only be 4 teams, and when you think about it now, there's 6 there with 4 of Richard Petty Motorsports, 2 of Yates. His name was one of the first names mentioned, along with Casey Kane, that they would be there next year. But there's no question, Paul moving from what was DEI to Yates Racing, it has not put forth the fruits that they were looking for with that change.
Well, and to Jeff's point, there's been a lot of conflicting information. We saw a release, as you said, Larry, that, oh yeah, Paul Menard's part of it for 2010, and then I read stuff this week that said not sure where he's going to be. So
a lot of people trying to court him away from that Yates Racing operation.
I mean, they're still looking for their first top 10 finish of 2009 with this 98 car.
Let's go back to the garage and Wendy.
You know, guys, it's very laid back here at the Auto Club Speedway this morning. We see Denny Hamlin talking to his crew chief, Mike Ford. He's sitting out on that chair as the car continues to get some adjustments made. But I just talked to Denny, and he said the track continues to lose more grip. It's getting very, very slick out there. He said so much as a half a second slower out on that racetrack. So I know it's very quiet on this end of the garage area where all the chase contenders are. Not a lot of action and cars on track. They might run 1 or 2 laps here and there, but most of these teams on this side of the garage are sitting out this practice session and just taking it easy, and you guys can comment on that grip and this temperature and how that all affects the race car.
There's no question. This is about the time of day we're going to be racing. You'd love to be out there making laps, but as DW tells us, right, DW? It's all about keeping miles off the engine.
It's all about the driver.
That gets up a little late.
30 minutes left in this 90-minute practice. Carl Edwards slows down on the backstretch.
I tell you what, this has been one more good racetrack for Carl Edwards. Right now, he's 7th quickest. He's run a total of 9 laps. 10 starts here. He has the win in 2008, a pole, 9 top 10 finishes out of those 10 starts.
This could be a great weekend for them because they really need to get something going there. I mean, we talked about momentum. We talked about points. A win would go probably a long ways in helping to kind of get these guys back into this thing.
And as you guys correctly point out, 161 points is a full race difference. And right now, Carl is 165 behind that guy, Mark Martin.
And we're by no means counting anybody out because we've got 7 to go. We've got Martinsville. We have Talladega. We've got a lot of racing, but just right now, I think being more than 1 race out, when you look at the way that these guys at the top of the charts are running, like Mark Martin, Jimmy Johnson, Montoya, Stewart, it's going to be tall order to get there.
Last night I saw Mark Martin and I said, now Mark, in January you told us all down in Daytona that we could not talk about the championship until there were 4 to go. Is that still the rule? And he goes, you have 3 to go. So that's still the rule, even though he is the points leader.
Well, you know, you go back and you talk about Carl Edwards. They've not run bad. But again, we want to point out how well everybody's run in front of him. He started in the chase, he was 40 points behind, but since then he's finished 17th, 11th, and 10th to find himself over 161 points behind. And, you know, again, he finds himself 100 points behind guys like Tony Stewart here.
Well, Jeff, let's take a look at those numbers. Mark Martin, 1st, 2nd, 7th. Juan Pablo, 3rd, 4th. Jimmy Johnson, 4th, 1st, 9th. That's hard to beat.
That's
it really is.
Tough numbers.
Again, like I say, Tony Stewart finished 14th, a 9th, and a 1st. And again, he's closed that gap down. He's down to where now he's only like 67 points out of 1st place. But I believe, guys, you can't afford to finish any worse than 14th or 15th. That's your mulligan. You know, Tony Stewart has already had his mulligan.
You know, Michael Waltrip said the other night on This Week in NASCAR, he said, I don't think, you know, we talk about mulligans. Michael said, I don't think you can finish 20th right now.
You can't. You can't. Take a look at this graphic. I mean, it pretty much sums up what went on here. I mean, look at Denny Hamlin, a 2nd, a 22nd, and a 5th, and he finds himself back there, you know, way behind. I mean, he's right at 99 points behind. I mean, that's hard to beat your competition when they're doing what they're doing.
When Jimmy Johnson's average finish is 5th.
Yeah. You know, though, why I think that win was so important for Tony Stewart, Darian Grubb, and the 14 team. Yeah, it was almost the max points you could get in the chase. But we talked to Tony and to Darian about this on NASCAR Victory Lane. They had not had a top 5 finish since they won Watkins Glen back in early August. So they needed that win for more than just the reasons of the points. I think just to get back on track.
Well, that gets to Jeff's point at the top of the show, momentum.
And it is. And you talk about that momentum, you go look all year long. Juan Pablo Montoya, he had 2 top finishes, 1 at Indy, I think 1 at Atlanta. Since they've gotten this chase, 3 top 5 finishes. Bam, bam, bam. I mean, they have shown that they can flex their muscle, they can be consistent. Whoa, hang on to her, Jimmy.
He was chasing that car up the track.
Yes, he was. So, you know, it's going to be one of those kind of years because they know to knock this man off the mountains. Right now, he's king of the mountain. 3 championships in a row Jimmy Johnson and Chad Canals, you know, if you want it, you're going to have to take it away from him. Let's take a look coming up off his corner there. Look at his gloves.
And this is a practice qualifying run, because even with the car looking that ill, he jumped up there to third quickest, just about 1/10 behind Montoya. So this was kind of a practice mock qualifying run. But you know, we already know what the qualifying order is going to be, Jeff, and you pointed this out. No question, this is one of those places where you want to go late. And I love what Jeff Hammond said. It's like giving the key to the candy store to this 48 team. Of our top 35 guys that always go first in qualifying, Jimmy Johnson, the 48 car, they go out 34th.
And on the other side of the fence, our first drivers out in qualifying, which you'll see here on Speed: Casey Kane, Brian Vickers, Denny Hamlin, and Greg Biffle, all chasers.
Got to have that late draw.
Stay with us here on Speed. October 24th on Speed, Matt Crafton will look to gain more ground up points later on Hornaday when the Camping World Truck Series trades paint at one of the series' tightest tracks. Don't miss the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series live from Martinsville, October 24th at 12:30 Eastern on Speed.
Hey, mentioning the truck deal,
Yeah.
guess who's going to be testing trucks for Red Horse Racing and Toyota upcoming weekend?
Two guys, right?
Two guys.
Nelson Piquet
Jr. and Vito Mera.
My mom.
Did read that up at Little Rock, right?
Yep, Little Rock. They're going to be down there doing a little bit of running right there, trying to check it out as far as the Camping World Truck Series is concerned.
Well, guys, going to break, we talked about the luck of the draw for the qualifying order, the number to the right, where our chasers will go out in order to qualify later here on Speed.
I said it earlier, you let Jimmy Johnson go out that late, and the way Chad Canals usually can figure things out, he will take full advantage of watching the weather, talking to his teammates, and listening to what's going on. And he'll have a big advantage, I think, over these guys when it's all said and done.
9 laps for Juan Pablo Montoya.
And he doesn't have a bad draw that we just saw there. He goes out 21st quickest.
And you know what? Let me say this. We're talking in terms of seconds, which is what the guys in the garage all talk about. He's got he just picked up now from a 39.46 to a 39.22. And folks, that equates to 183.56 miles an hour.
New car?
Nope, this is the first time that they have not brought a new car in the chase, but this is his favorite car. This is the car that he was so dominant back at Indianapolis Motor Speedway back in late July. But I do know for a fact of the final 5 or 6 races, they'll have 2 more new cars that they're going to bring out for Montoya.
Randy, what's going on with Casey Kane? Not very quick right now.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. You know, we mentioned this on NASCAR Live prior to getting into the qualifying show is don't worry about speeds because guys are going to be all over the map with what they're doing here. They're just now switching over to qualifying trim. So I just spoke to Casey before we got in the car. He said everything's good. Car is really good under race conditions, they thought. So they just now switched everything over. Got a set of stickers on. They're going to go out and try to lay down a lap. Not a lot of tape on the grill, so whatever he runs here, it's not going to be exactly the speed that they might be able to run. They have a little more room to go. So Casey, very happy with the car. To Wendy.
Thanks, Randy. In the 14 of Tony Stewart, he sits in this garage area right now. The car has old tires on it, and that was a good thing for that last run for the 14. The important part of that story is that he was pretty fast on old tires. Darian Grubb was really pleased that he was running the lap times he was, a 39.9 on old tires, and his fastest was a 39.8, so pretty good lap times in a race run for Tony Stewart. They're getting ready to put some stickers on it. Tony Stewart just sits in the race car waiting for some slight adjustments, but when they put those stickers out there, well, I'm sure we'll see him jump up the board even more in that qualifying trip.
Well, Wendy, I tell you what, I'm looking at Juan Pablo Montoya's numbers. 39.22, guys. He's the only driver over 183 miles per hour. Pretty sporty lap by Juan Pablo.
Pretty sporty lap, but I think they'll get faster as they go later on and try to start figuring this thing out. As we're watching David Reagan, his best finish here at Auto Club Speedway has to be his 12th. Guys, I was with him last night. We were racing go-karts together.
And you know the thing about this 6 team, they only have one top 10 finish in 2009, and that was back in the Daytona 500 in February. Again, coming here part of the Roush Fenway group, you would hope that they feel like that this is maybe one of the places they can get things turned around. Right now he's run a total of 16 laps and jumped up to 3rd quickest right behind Mark Martin.
And right behind David Reagan, David Stremme has just jumped up into the top 5. Stremme, 21 laps completed in this practice, which is zipping by quickly. About 18 minutes left here in this 90-minute practice. Stay with us here on Speed. Now, NASCAR on Speed is always on with NASCAR on Speed Broadband, a free super site for the hardcore fan. The best of NASCAR on Speed, plus exclusive videos you can't get anywhere else. Log on now to the video section, speedtv.com or NASCAR.com. That's like VOD, video on demand. Jeff Burton's put a lot of laps on his number 31 car. Whoa, a little loose right there.
Slide job.
26 laps for Burton, but he's just 31st overall.
I think he just put on some fresh tires because he just jumped up to 23rd. And, you know, we keep talking about these laps on these engines, Larry. I mean, you know, you got to remember, 28 laps is how many miles?
28 laps would be 56 miles.
56 miles. So once again, we go back to that engine deal, and our old boy Darrell Waltrip, he sent me a little text message that said that place will suck the guts right out of an engine.
And then he sent one to me that said, "Believe what I'm trying to tell you."
That's right. I'm telling you boys, better watch out. That puts me miles on that engine, it'll come back to haunt you.
He sent one to me a while back that said a 4-man booth sounds pretty good.
I think we got
We
one
had
going.
that at Richmond.
I think we got it going right now.
See Martin Truex Jr.
It's like he's sitting here right now.
Yeah.
in the one car right now. He's been up near the top of the charts most of this practice session. Right now, he is 13th quickest. And it looks like that this group, Kevin Mannion, they've decided to work on qualifying only because he's only run a total of 9 laps. This group here, they do have 3 top 10 finishes in 2009, still looking for their first top 5 finish.
David, hate going back to Darrell, but right quick.
Yeah,
you know what? You know what we're kind of like we're like now. I just
What?
realized something. We're almost like his puppets. You know, he's like the ventriloquist.
Oh,
he's
good
got us
point.
doing the talking for him.
That's right. That's right.
He
He's
can
smarter.
push us any direction he wants to push.
He's smarter than we
Here
are.
we go, just a little string.
Well, Randy, Kyle Busch, I heard that he's not feeling well. How's his race car?
Well, what he's saying, Steve, is just tight in the center. Tight in the center. They changed 2 shocks prior to the last run, and he said it's bouncing down the front straightaway. So they went ahead and put the shocks back the way they were prior to that. Now they've got a set of stickers on there. He's going to get ready to go out and cut a lap and see how he does. But he's not really complaining about the car, just saying a little tight. But you're hearing this from everybody. You know, tight in the middle, loose off, and just can't get the forward bite that they want coming up off the corner. Wendy?
Well, Randy, the 42 of Juan Pablo Montoya, fastest off the truck in race trim and now fastest in qualifying trim as well. I just spoke to Brian Patty, the crew chief. He said we have to come off the trailer in race trim. That's the best thing for Juan Pablo Montoya. We never start off in qualifying trim. They were fastest in that race trim, as I mentioned, and now they're just as pleased with qualifying. All smiles here. They only ran 10 laps this practice session, and they are done for this first practice session. They come into the Auto Club Speedway 51 points back in the points, 3rd right now, and you can see why they have momentum on their side, and they are feeling pretty good about their race car. Brian Patty did mention this is the Indy car, and he said it's the best car in our fleet. It better run good off the truck. Steve?
And Wendy, just a reminder, Juan Pablo, and Jeff, you mentioned it too, he had dominated that race. They got caught speeding on pit road. It cost him the race, and so understandable that he's excited about driving this particular race car.
Now, Larry, right quick. You know, when we heard about that speed penalty up there, and Juan Pablo is the same way, it's kind of like, there's no way I was speeding, no way I was speeding. But you spent some time last week in Kansas sitting up there watching a lot of the stuff that goes on in the NASCAR timing and scoring and race control booth, and you told us, Steve and I, that, man, you were real impressed with what they do over there.
I'm going to tell you what, it's pretty much cut and dry, red and black, green or red. I was very enlightened by that experience about the first 100 laps. To the fans, to the people out there that maybe think there's conspiracy sometimes, trust me, if you're speeding on pit road just like Carl Edwards was on that first set of green flag stops, they have it there, and it's pretty much in red. There is no question. The other thing I want to point out is when a caution comes out during the race, if your driver maybe thinks he was in front of another car, it's black and white. They know exactly when they freeze the field, exactly where every one of those race cars are around very impressed with the procedure that David Hoots, John Darby, Robin Pemberton, Karen Mason Cup, that whole group over there. I can't leave Mike Phillips out of this either.
Well, you could.
The whole thing that they have in place over there, it was very intriguing and very enlightening.
We saw Jeff Gordon a moment ago. Larry headed to the garage. Jeff Gordon, a 3-time winner here, just 20th overall. He's got a Pepsi paint scheme this week in the Pepsi 500. Mark Martin, 50 years old, trying to win his first championship.
More texts coming.
Oh, Daryl wants to know how long this practice is. About another 10 minutes, Daryl.
He's getting a little bit tired.
Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice from the Auto Club Speedway is brought to you by Copart.com, an online auto auction where you control the price you want to pay. Go to Copart.com today.
Was that right?
What's that?
Zillions of cars?
Zillions?
That's what it said.
If they say so. Wow. Hey, as we watch Tony Stewart, the final 10 minutes of this practice, I want to ask you boys, how about the announcement this week from NASCAR that our starting times are going to 1 p.m. standardized for the most part in 2010?
I'm excited about it. I mean, I've had a lot of race fans say that, you know, they really preferred that earlier start time, especially the ones here at the track and even the ones at home. They feel like it's more like the NFL. You walk in on a Sunday afternoon, and they can turn it on at 1 o'clock, and you know where they can find us. Makes it a lot better for everybody. So I'm excited that, you know, that all the folks on all the networks, whether it's Fox, TNT, ESPN, they all agree.
ABC.
Yeah, ABC.
And, you know, even the Daytona 500, I think last year our green flag was at 3:20. Coming up in 2010, it looks like green flag will be around 1:15.
Well, and I think as much as what the time is, it's the fact that it's now going to be consistent. I think we have confused our race fans over the last few years with the starting time being all over the place. And I think now, just like Jeff said, I'm a sports fan. We finish our NASCAR season after Homestead, I watch football. I can go to church, I can go to lunch, and I know that I can walk in my house. I may not know who's playing, but I can walk in my house at 1 o'clock and I'm going to see a football get kicked off. And I just think the consistency is going to help across the board.
Great move by the broadcast partners and NASCAR. Consistent starting times. In fact, the West Coast races will begin at 3 Eastern, so to be 12 local. And I'm with you guys. I think it's great for the fans. And you know what? From the competitor standpoint, it means they get home earlier. It means the fans that come to the races can get home earlier. They've got to work the next day.
And the other part of that right there, heaven forbid, if we have rain, we got a little bit longer to get the track dry and try to get the race in.
Yeah, because we go to some tracks that they don't have lights. And if we start late, we have no buffer. We have no cushion. And when it comes to mind was a couple of years ago at Kansas, where we had that little bit of rain and we just couldn't finish the race because we started so late and we didn't have lights.
Same thing at Talladega. We had heavy rain. I remember by the time we drove out of the racetrack, the sun was out, but there's no lights there.
Exactly.
Hey, Mark Martin's been among the quickest. He is standing by with our Wendy Venturini.
Well, Mark Martin is just switching out his shoes. Of course, he just took off his driving shoes. They are done for this practice session. Now, Mark has started with a pretty good balance on your race car, Mark. You seem very pleased with it in this practice session right off the truck.
Yeah, my car's really working. I'm just excited about the race right now because I know that the way it's driving right now, it's going to be really good in race trim. It's pretty fast. Juan Pablo's putting a whooping on us right now, but we can tune this thing in a race. Last week, we never could get the car to do what I wanted it to do, and I think that this one will. So really like the way the car's working.
How do you suspect the racetrack's going to change throughout the day today?
I don't think it'll change a whole lot. Really, to be honest with you, the sun is pretty strong right now. I think it will continue to be strong even when we run, so I don't expect a big change.
Okay, thanks to Mark Martin, and he made sure to thank his crew guys at the end of this practice session. He said, thanks, guys, for everything. Great job today, and that, I'm sure, gives them some motivation. Steve?
And, you know, Steve, we went off the air so quick last week after some of the shows at Kansas. I don't think we documented when he sat on the pole last week. That was his 7th pole in 2009, and even with 48 career poles, that's the highest single-season total of his career.
Less than 5 minutes remaining in this practice. Stay with us here on Speed. Following this practice here at the Auto Club Speedway, Barrett Jackson, Las Vegas. Some nice rides out there. There Barry says Mike Joy is out there, so make sure you stay with us here on Speed. And then after Barrett Jackson, we'll have live Sprint Cup qualifying here in Fontana, California, the Inland Empire. Randy?
If Kyle Busch wasn't feeling very good this morning, which we've documented that he has the flu now walking back to his hauler, he's a little more sick now because the 18 team just broke the engine last time out on that Q run. So they don't know exactly what happened to it, but they're getting ready to yank it here. So a bad day for Kyle Busch, getting worse. Not feeling well. Now the engine's gone, and he'll have to start at the back no matter what he does today.
Yeah, so qualifying will be pretty much for pit selection only. We're looking at Casey Kane here in that 9 car right now, still 39th quickest. He's run a total of 15 laps. And while we're on the subject of engines, after that engine failure in this 9 car at New Hampshire a few weeks ago, it sounds like that they're pretty much going to stick with the old engine package, the remaining of 2009. I think that Elliott Sadler, the 19 group, Wally Rogers, and that team, they're going to continue to run the new engine, but right now they've decided to cut back. You know, the real advantage, I was talking to one of the guys with Dodge this morning about this. The real advantage with the new Dodge engine, it's not necessarily that it makes more horsepower. 2 advantages. It's lighter than the old engine, which those old front tires love a lighter engine up there. But the biggest thing, it runs cooler. You can run more tape with the new package. It's not the fact that it just makes more horsepower.
And that's going to help you aerodynamically as far as making the balance of the race car. And that's why you're talking about engines. Spoke to the folks over at Roush Fenway about the new Ford engine. Expect to see it probably at Talladega, believe it or not, in restrictor plate.
In a non-chase car, though,
non-chase car out there. They're still trying to get the bugs worked out of it, and they're not going to run that engine until they know it's 100%.
Martin Truex Jr., we talked about him a while ago. He's run a total of 11 laps. Right now, he's 15th quickest. Of course, his teammate, Juan Pablo Montoya, is still the quickest. A little over 2/10 quicker than Jimmy Johnson. But Jeff pointed out to me a while ago when we were talking about Kyle Busch only 37th quickest in this practice.
Yeah, he's not really, I don't think that car, and it may be a byproduct of him not feeling well, but they really haven't been up to speed. And it may have been the fact that, Steve, that the engine itself was getting weak. That's maybe what got him in trouble.
Hearing that Kyle Busch missed a shift in that 18 car. 6 chasers inside the top 10 here in this practice.
That could be a product of not feeling good.
Barrett Jackson coming up next, then Sprint Cup Series qualifying at 6:30 Eastern here on Speed.